Welcome to Mind Mechanics Lab, where we decode the most fascinating stories from history, science, and the world around us. Today's discovery will change how you see things. Let's dive in. Imagine a devastating military campaign, a conflict remembered as a humiliating failure for one side, marked by immense loss and strategic miscalculation. Now imagine that very same event, viewed from the other side, is celebrated as one of the greatest victories, a defining moment that birthed a nation's soul. This isn't a paradox. It's the profound, often counterintuitive psychology of how collective identity is forged in the crucible of shared experience. Today we're diving into the legendary Gallipoli campaign of World War I, a battle fought on a small peninsula in Turkey, which, for the nascent Turkish Republic, became far more than just a victory. It was the moment a people, through shared struggle and sacrifice, consciously became a nation. The Allied forces, including Australian, New Zealand, British, and French troops, saw it as a brutal, 8-month-long quagmire, ending in withdrawal. Yet, for the Ottoman forces defending their homeland, it was a triumph that laid the groundwork for modern Turkey. This isn't just ancient history, it's a masterclass in how shared trauma, collective effort, and the narrative that emerges from it can fundamentally reshape a group's understanding of itself, transforming disparate communities into an imagined political community with a common destiny. How can such bloodshed create national identity? To understand Gallipoli's impact, we first need to set the stage. The Gallipoli Peninsula, known in antiquity as the Thracian Chersonese, is a narrow strip of land in what is now the European part of Turkey, flanked by the Aegean Sea to the west and the Dardanelles straight to the east. It has always been a choke point, a strategic crossroads between Europe and Asia, controlling shipping routes and vital trade from places like Crimea. Throughout history, this land has seen countless struggles for control, from Greek colonizers and Persian empires to Athenians, Spartans, Romans, and Byzantines. In 1354, a strong earthquake even destroyed the city walls, weakening defenses just before the Ottomans besieged and captured the town, making it their first European stronghold. By 1854, during the Crimean War, it was a major encampment for British and French forces. Fast forward to early 1915, during the height of World War I. The British, seeking a strategic advantage, authorized an attack on the peninsula. Their goal, to capture the Bosporus Strait at Istanbul and secure a sea route to relieve their eastern ally, Russia. This was a high-stakes gamble aimed at breaking the stalemate of the Western Front and potentially shortening the war. But this wasn't just a battle for territory, it was a crucible that would forge a new identity. At the heart of Gallipoli's legacy lies a powerful concept: the social construction of a nation. As scholars widely agree, nations are not eternal fixed entities. They are socially constructed, historically contingent, organizationally flexible, and a distinctly modern phenomenon. They emerge from a combination of shared features like language, history, ethnicity, culture, or territory, coalescing into a collective national identity. Benedict Anderson famously defined a nation as an imagined political community. Imagined because the members of even the smallest nation will never know most of their fellow members, meet them, or even hear of them. Yet in the minds of each lives the image of their communion. Anthony D. Smith adds that nations are cultural political communities that have become conscious of their autonomy, unity, and particular interests. Gallipoli provided precisely this kind of crucible for the Ottoman people. Facing a common enemy on their home soil, defending a vital strategic point, the disparate groups within the Ottoman Empire found themselves united in a shared, intense experience of struggle and sacrifice. This collective endeavor, regardless of the individual's origin, began to weave the threads of a unified narrative, fostering a profound sense of communion that transcended local identities. This shared trauma and triumph became a foundational story, essential for any burgeoning national identity. The Gallipoli campaign itself was a brutal, protracted affair. The Allied forces, a diverse contingent of French, British, Australian, New Zealand, Newfoundland, Irish, and Indian troops, launched their assault in early 1915. Their objective was clear: to capture the Bosporus Strait and Istanbul, thereby opening a crucial supply line to Russia. On the morning of April 25, 1915, the first Australian troops landed at Anzac Cove, marking the beginning of 8 months of heavy fighting. The Ottoman forces, however, were well prepared and fiercely defended their homeland. They had set up extensive defensive fortifications along the peninsula, effectively containing the invading forces. Despite the Allies' sustained efforts, the campaign devolved into a grueling stalemate, characterized by trench warfare, immense casualties, and little strategic gain. By January 9, 1916, the last Allied soldiers withdrew, marking the end of the campaign. For the Allies, it was a humiliating Allied failure, a costly defeat that achieved none of its objectives. But for the Ottoman Empire, it was a very different story. Historians regard it as one of the greatest Ottoman victories during the war, a testament to their resilience and strategic prowess. This stark contrast in perception is key to understanding its lasting legacy. Why did Gallipoli become such a pivotal event for the Turkish nation? The psychology behind it is fascinating. For the Ottoman people, defending their homeland against a powerful multinational invasion created an intense collective experience of existential threat and heroic resistance. This wasn't merely a battle, it was a struggle for survival that unified diverse populations under a common cause. The shared sacrifice, the resilience in the face of overwhelming odds, and ultimately, the victory, provided a powerful narrative bedrock. It became a defining moment in their nation's history and national identity. This era also saw the rise of key figures, notably Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, who gained prominence as a commander at Gallipoli. His leadership and the collective success fostered a sense of shared destiny and capability that transcended the existing imperial structure. The Ottoman Empire even instituted the Gallipoli Star as a military decoration in 1915, cementing the campaign's importance in public memory. This collective experience, imbued with heroism and national pride, directly contributed to the establishment of the Republic of Turkey 8 years later. It transformed a diverse collection of people into an imagined political community with a shared history and a vision for the future, proving that adversity can be the most potent forge for identity. The lessons from Gallipoli extend far beyond military history. The principle that shared, intense experiences, especially struggles and triumphs, can forge a powerful collective identity is observable across various contexts. Think about how a startup team, facing immense pressure and long hours to launch a product, develops an unbreakable bond and a distinct company culture. Or how communities rally after a natural disaster, creating a sense of unity and purpose that wasn't as strong before. This isn't just about survival, it's about the narrative that emerges from these events. The belief that state and nation should align as a nation-state, known as nationalism, didn't become a prominent ideology until the end of the 18th century. However, The underlying psychological mechanisms that create these bonds are timeless. It's the human need to belong, to be part of something larger than oneself, particularly when facing significant challenges. When a group collectively overcomes an obstacle or even endures a profound loss together, they create a shared history, a common story that defines who they are. This shared story becomes the glue, fostering loyalty, resilience, and a distinct identity. The Mind Mechanics Lab often explores how these psychological forces shape outcomes, and Gallipoli is a prime example of identity building in extremis. While Gallipoli offers a powerful case study, the concept of nationhood and its origins is far from simple. Scholars largely agree that nations are socially constructed and a modern phenomenon, but there's a fascinating debate about the existence of earlier nations. Some historians, like Adrian Hastings, argue that nations and nationalism have roots in the medieval period, citing examples like England's Anglo-Saxon kings mobilizing mass nationalism to repel Norse invasions, or the Jews maintaining a cohesive national identity through collective memory, despite losing political sovereignty. Florin Curta points to the medieval Bulgarian nation with its distinct ethnic identity, fostered by Old Church Slavonic literacy. Azargat even argues China, Korea, and Japan were nations by the European Middle Ages. However, critics like John Bruili and Patrick J. Geary caution against assuming continuity based solely on recurring names. They argue that early medieval and contemporary group identities are fundamentally different, and we shouldn't conflate them. This complexity highlights that, while shared history is crucial, how that history is interpreted and framed is equally important. For the Allies at Gallipoli, the shared experience was one of tragic failure. For the Ottomans, it was one of victorious defense. The event itself was singular, but its meaning and nation-building impact were entirely dependent on perspective, narrative, and the desire to forge a collective identity. So what can we take away from Gallipoli a century later in our own lives and organizations? The core lesson is this: shared struggle, when processed and narrated effectively, is an incredibly potent force for building collective identity and resilience. Whether you're leading a team, building a community, or even trying to define your personal purpose, understand the power of defining moments. Don't shy away from challenges. Instead, embrace them as opportunities to forge stronger bonds and clearer identities. When faced with adversity, actively work to create a shared narrative of perseverance and collective achievement. Celebrate the small victories, acknowledge the sacrifices, and recognize the common purpose that unites you. Just as Gallipoli gave the Turkish people a foundational story that contributed to their nation's birth, your own experiences, the struggles you overcome together, can define your future success. Reflect on the defining moments in your own life and the groups you belong to. What story do they tell? How can you consciously leverage shared experience to build a stronger, more unified, imagined community around you? That's the mind mechanic at work, understanding how history shapes identity and how you can harness that power. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, hit that subscribe button. New discoveries every Tuesday and Friday. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring.